Joining us from Providence, Rhode Island, by the way, is Jason. Good morning, sir.
What's up? Everything sound okay?
Yeah, you sound like you are in a hotel room in Providence, Rhode Island.
That would be accurate, yes.
So how was the trip up?
It was a flight. It's always good when you have a landing that when the flight attendant comes on the microphone afterwards is kind of laughing about how maybe sudden it was. That's always good. But anyway.
Oh, man. But you are up there because last time we checked, Atlanta United has a midweek match, and they are playing the New England Revolution.
Yes, that is accurate.
Looking back, let's look back before we go forward. Takeaways once again from the Department of Defense, otherwise known as Atlanta United, getting another big win.
You're not giving up a whole lot of good chances right now. And I think the overall shot total can be extremely misleading, and Montreal was a prime example of it. I felt like they settled for a lot of long-range shots, and one shot on goal for Philly as well. So, that's never happened before because it doesn't happen very often where you're doing that well defensively. And look, it starts all over the field, and I think that's a big part of this, and that's nothing new. And that's where you get back to, how the team's playing now versus how they've played before, and, all these dramatic changes. And it's not, it's tweaks in maybe a little bit of the positioning, and more importantly, the positioning when you are under some pressure. You have that extra center back that is helping out. But when you build up the play, Ronald Hernandez can get forward. And honestly, we've seen Luis Abram get forward a good bit from the left side too, both on the offensive side and the defensive side. So you're just changing where you can be aggressive at times. And I think that's the key here, is that they're very good defensively right now, but they're not doing it in a passive way. You're not just putting numbers behind the ball, sitting back, clogging lanes up. You're doing some of that in the right spots, but you're also aggressive high up the field. You're making it difficult for teams to build up the play. You're aggressive in the middle third. It's difficult to play through. And I thought in Montreal, that was evident with Sosa and with Sejdic in the midfield in front of those three center backs. And then in the second half, you saw players drop even further into that midfield. Jay Fortune, when he came on, Wolf dropped deeper because that's where the issue was. And Gonzalo Pineda talked about it a little bit on Monday at media. Rudy Camacho was finding spaces when he was passing forward. He was finding the lane to beat the higher press. So they made a little tweak, dropped a little bit deeper in the midfield. It turned a little bit more from a 5-2-2-1 to a 5-3-1-1. Doesn't sound like much, but it clogged some of the lanes. And then Montreal has to go out wide, and they can't play through that space. And then when Atlanta breaks, they can break, and they can build up the play too and keep it. So you're just making little tweaks to your approach, and it's working right now. Now it's going to be tested against New England because you're dealing with one of the best maybe lock pickers in terms of a defense, in terms of Carlos Heel, that you're going to find. He's one of the best playmakers in this league, and he's got a lot of options around him. And he's fresh because he didn't play on the weekend due to yellow card accumulation. So lots of things to deal with when you go into this one, but they're coming in a really good bit of form right now on the defensive side of the ball.
Jarrett, go for it.
You talk about if it's going to be that box midfield look again with I'd be really tempted to go again with Sejdic and Sosa, especially with their ability to hold on to the ball and distribute, because aside from don't let him have the ball, which seems like plan A1 for dealing with Carlos Heel. I mean, how else would you deal with him other than just try and like force him to drop back and pick up the ball in less dangerous areas?
You want to do a little bit of all of the above, because I mean, players like that, you're not going to stop completely. It's just impossible. But you want to limit when they can be dangerous, and you want to limit where they have space and time. And yeah, you do want him to drop back and get on the ball deeper, because if he's doing that, he's a little frustrated because he's not getting the ball in more dangerous spots in the attack. you want to do a little bit of, I think, some different things against him, because if you do the same thing over and over again, he's going to figure it out. If you go with more of the box midfield with, the starters from the Montreal game, you're talking Sosa and Sejdic behind Almada and Wolf. If you do something like that, you want to literally box him in. You want to, if he receives it there, not have any clean looks to get out of that. You do want to deny him the ball at times. You're not going to man mark him, but you want to be aware of where he is. And that's where having Sosa, having Sejdic, and potentially, if you drop a little bit deeper at times, having Wolf be the third, so it turns from a box into more of a little bit of a diamond. When you do that, you have the ability, when a pass is coming into him, to take a little bit of a gamble and try to jump that lane. If you don't get it, you have cover. And that's the balancing act here defensively. I don't think Atlanta's ever going to be a defensive team that just puts numbers behind the ball and sits and waits and lets opponents do what they do. You're going to see a team that wants to find ways to be aggressive. That's the mentality. That's the approach. That's the personality of this group. So if you do that, whether it's the box, whether it's the diamond, how it turns, because it's different, but it's not that different. You have the ability to be a little aggressive when that ball comes into heel. You can try to jump in front. And Amar Sejdic is really good at reading those things. He's been outstanding defensively. And I think, one of the big stories this season has been the consistently strong play on and off the ball from Amar Sejdic. It's been a huge, huge part of this midfield all year long.
When it comes to this match being the meat and the sandwich, that second one in short order, getting ready for Orlando on the weekend, how different do you anticipate the starting lineup being, knowing that Orlando game is coming up this weekend?
It's tough. You don't really have a book here to follow because Orlando's not playing tonight. Thank you, MLS schedule makers. That's really a good setup there. Really good setup for making things all fair when teams are going to play, especially a rivalry game where you're at home and you've got to go to Foxborough on the Wednesday and then come back and play a team that doesn't play in the midweek. Good job, guys. You can go one of these ways. You just decide to say, all right, well, we're on the road. We'd rather win the home game, so let's heavily rotate. Or we're going to be tired either way. Let's go with what's working. And I don't know which route you're going to take here. Either way, knowing how things can go, you're going to have the questions afterwards. I mean, there's not a route here. You're going to be in a tricky, because let's say you rotate. Let's say your mindset is let's rotate and have our best guys fresh for Orlando on the weekend, so we have a better chance to win at home. Okay, but then they lose a little bit of that rhythm. You lose that momentum that you have going right now. So then the flip side, you go and you keep rolling with what's working. Maybe you change one or two depending on fatigue, whatever. And then they're tired on Saturday. So, there's no way here to handle this perfectly. You don't have it. You have to figure out what's best to get the most points in these two games. And it doesn't matter where they come. It doesn't matter if you get 3 tonight and 1 on Saturday, or it's reversed, or 3-0. You got to get the most you can in these two games. And that's where it's down to, I think, Gonzalo, and I think it's also down to the sports science department to be able to tell you how much that people can go without risk and injury. You do have a little bit of a break after the Orlando game. You've built up fitness all year long to get to these kinds of moments. Maybe guys can get you, maybe not 180 at 100%. Maybe they can get you 150. Maybe they can get you 120. And that might be enough to get through these two games. But, your guess is as good as mine on what it looks like, just because it's an awful setup from the league. I really don't like it. And it's something that we've talked about over the years when it comes to scheduling. Scheduling's hard. I've done it on a very small scale with the NPSL Southeast. I did the schedules in, I think, 2011, 12, and I was involved in it in 14 and 15, if I remember right. I did it in 11 and 12. I did the schedule. And when you're dealing with I think we were at 6 teams then, maybe we got to 8 in the second year. It's hard enough, but it's an easy format at least. You know what everybody's doing. You're playing basically the same schedule for everybody. You just have to deal with everybody's availability of venues. Here, you're dealing with a whole lot more teams. I get it. I understand how hard it is. But this type of stuff consistently happens. It's not just to Atlanta. It's to every team around the league. You shouldn't have this happen. You just shouldn't have this happen. And it creates a really difficult spot for the team, but you got to deal with it. You got to get as many points as you can in these 2 games. And hopefully that starts tonight.
And look, we talked about, Atlanta's going to do their thing. They're going to be who they are. How susceptible do you think a team like New England can be to getting frustrated if Atlanta's able to play their game and to hold on to the ball? And part of that is, if it's Sosa, especially if it's Sosa, which will be Sosa, but especially if it's Sadich, who can be very good on the ball. But I guess one way to mitigate what New England can do is to try and hang on to the ball and not give it up in bad dangerous areas. But how susceptible are they to getting frustrated if you can just hang on to the ball and kind of try and shorten the game a bit while also being dangerous?
Yeah, I don't think they'll keep the ball just for keeping the ball's sake, but having possession can frustrate teams. New England's not maybe as possession based as they have been in the past. They can play on the counter a little bit more. Their setup's interesting because and we've had this conversation about New England before too. Like, I thought New England was at their best in 2019 when they played in a 4-2-3-1 with Heel as a winger coming inside, because it really created some difficult matchup questions and some difficult structural questions, because he could play wide, but he came inside, and that's where he was dangerous, creating overloads. When they went to more of the 4-4-2 diamond kind of, I think it limits some things. And this year, it's kind of a lopsided setup where a lot of times, not always, and they're missing some people too. They've got some injuries they're dealing with, and DeJuan Jones away. At times, it looks a little bit like 3 center backs and a pseudo wing back on the left side, Emmanuel Boateng, with the left back in the 4-4-2 staying home a lot, and your right back, Brandon Bye, playing as a wing back or a winger. So they're set up to where they can play a little more on the counter. And I think they've done that more this year. Their average possession's under 50%. So I don't think they get too frustrated without the ball. But I also think the flip side is that they lost a game that they're very upset about over the weekend. And they're going to be frustrated walking in the door. They're going to be, I think, hyped up because of how the last time these teams played, how it started and ended. They're going to see opportunity here at home. They should. They haven't lost at home. They're one of only 2 teams in MLS who hasn't lost a home game this season. So I think they're going to be loaded for bear to be on the front foot. Now, if Atlanta can keep the ball, and again, not just keep it to keep it, I don't think that's the way that Atlanta would play it. I don't think that's the way that they want to do. But keep it and create opportunities. Keep it in the attacking half. Keep it in the attacking third. There could be some spots where New England gets a little bit antsy. And I think the first 15 minutes is a really big part of this. I'd love to see Atlanta on the front foot in the first 15 and really go for it there. New England's been a little susceptible to start games. They build as the game goes on. Atlanta's actually been one of the better teams in scoring goals early. I know New England scored early last time out. Hopefully no mistakes in possession in the back. So I'd love to see Atlanta go for it early. And then if it doesn't come, be smart defensively. You might have to do that a little bit just because of the possession. Because of the game on Saturday, which actually took a lot out of those guys. It was hot and just muggy and sticky in Montreal. It took a lot out of them. It was a physical game. And you're going to have to deal with that with guys who played in that one and play again tonight. So I think both teams are going to have to pick their spots maybe a little bit more than they'd like because of the midweek after hectic games. I mean, you play the Red Bulls, you know how that's going to affect you as well. So I think both teams are going to have to pick their spots a little bit. I'd like to see Atlanta try to land the first punch and really go for it early, because if they can either get that first goal or just really put a scare into New England, I want to see how New England looks if they get a little rattled. I don't think they're good enough defensively to handle that. Goalkeeper's great. Goalkeeper's outstanding. But we talked about it coming into that New England game last time. Andrew Farrell was in a really bad run of form there. He had a great game against Atlanta United in that one. You can get at him a little bit, I think. I think you can get guys in behind him. You can get guys running at him and beat him on the dribble. That could be a huge opportunity. Farrell and Romney, solid center backs. I think Romney is one of the more underrated guys in the league, but they're not the most athletic. And I think you can get them in 1v1s. And that's what Atlanta should be looking for, especially early in the first half. And again, I'd love to see it early in the second half too. I think New England's a team that gets better in the 45s. Try to hit them early before they get settled.
Yeah, no Latif Blessing because of the red card in the previous match as well. The player availability report. No Nacho Heel out, Kessler out, Maciel out, Tommy Mack out. You mentioned DeJuan Jones for international duty. The last time that they played in the midweek, their starting lineup was as follows. Bobby Wood and Gustavo Bo up top. Boateng, Polster, Blessing, obviously not a part of the discussion tonight.
Carlos Heel in for Blessing.
Right. And so Bayraktarovic, who, Jason, you got the chance to see with Revolution 2, he was getting some starts in the midfield last time. Sweat, Romney, Farrell, Bay, and I'm glad you mentioned Petrovic because that was going to be my next question, was going up against probably one of the I don't want to use the word necessarily underrated, but because he plays in New England, a lot of folks don't know about Petrovic and what he's been able to accomplish. One of the more solid keepers and it's been a great pickup for New England.
Yeah, folks should know about him, and they should know about New England because this is the third team in the Eastern Conference. I mean, I know at times our national coverage of the league gets a little slanted on a few teams, and New England's one that shouldn't be left out of that conversation. You have the best playmaker in Heel, if not in the league since he joined it. He's top 2 or 3 since 2019, and you have one of the best shot stoppers in Petrovic. So I think you have to not really worry about his stature because, look, you scored 3 on him last time. You know, he's very good, but he's human. For me, it's that defense. I mean, Ben Sweat hasn't been here very long with New England. I think that was his first start, if I'm not mistaken, maybe his second. Okay, he's bounced around a little bit here lately around the league for a reason. I mentioned Farrell in the back. You know Brandon Bay is going to get forward. He can be dangerous, as we saw over the weekend. But that's going to open up some spaces to attack in. We've talked about it, I think, a lot here locally with the 3 center backs and how everything's so much better defensively and the effects defensively. I asked Gonzalo on Monday about what it does for the team in the attack, because I think it's had a huge impact on the attacking side as well. Brooks Lennon's got a goal in each game since playing as a wing back as opposed to a right back. Doesn't sound like a big difference, but it frees him up a little bit. Same with Caleb Wiley, who I think needs to get going in these moments and get into the attacking third and contribute. Both of them can be really key here, and it's Wiley on that left side and Brandon Bay as the right back / right wing back. You want to make Bay defend. You want to get in behind. You take Bay out of their attack. It limits them. It takes a weapon away, and you put him defending where he's a stronger attacker than defender. So Wiley becomes really key here. For me, it's not about their goalkeeper being so good. It's about the players in front. You can get chances against New England. You can get opportunities against this team. As we saw last time, you've got to limit their opportunities better, and you've got to do a better job defensively, which this team has lately, while still getting forward, maybe in a little bit different way than you did that game. Game state will not factor in the same way, hopefully. Hopefully you don't concede a first-minute goal and you're chasing it, and then you have to come all the way back, and then you don't get resettled once you get to 3-2. Hopefully you can be in more control of this one. And that's the key for me, is controlling the game, working the ball to the outsides, finding Almada in space, and being a team that's difficult to break down, just making Carlos Heel have to play sideways and backwards more. Don't let him turn and get his head up and find runners.
Broadcast plans, sir, for you and Mike.
7 o'clock, Five Stripes Countdown. 7:39 is your kickoff. We'll have a little bit of a full-time report after the final whistle. So we got a plane to catch to get back to Atlanta. Very, very late/early, depending on what day you want to talk about. It's going to be a long day for us, but we'll be on 92.9 The Game and the Odyssey app.
Looking forward to it, and we will catch up with you. Do we get you Friday as well to talk about the purple team?
Friday, possibly. Media and training is on Friday, so possibly, but it's a little bit harder when those things line up. I will try.
No doubt about it, but it's always great to have you to give the Atlanta United perspective leading into these matches. Have a fantastic call tonight and continue enjoying the Italian food in Providence, Rhode Island, sir.
I don't need any more Italian food after what I ate last night. I am so full still from last night. I'm good.
All right. Be good, my friend. We'll see you soon.
Adios.